A 52-year-old male patient presented with left facial numbness and pain since 7 days. Pain was mild to moderate, radiating to the left upper jaw. There was no other complaint regarding the present illness. In past history, patient is a known case of diabetes mellitus type 2 since 5 years and is on oral hypoglycemic agents. His HbA1c was 9.3. The patient has COVID symptom on 18/4/21 and tested positive on 24/21. So after testing positive, he was earlier in home isolation. Then he started desaturating, and on 20th night he was admitted to a private hospital and diagnosed with COVID pneumonia. He was admitted for oxygen for 2 days, followed by NRBM for 5 days, and then nasal prongs 4-liter till date. Patient has received 16 mg Dexa, and then it was tapered gradually. The previous record does not mention about how proper control of diabetes was done or not. Patient tested negative on 10th of this May and was sent home, but then he had this complaint since last 7 days. So any comments on?
So very important that this is a 52 years old male and having the diabetes, and you said the HbA1c is
9.3.
9.3. So it is not, if you see the HbA1c tell you about the diabetic control or glycemic control for last 3 months, and it suggests that it was not controlled. Rather, I would say it was poorly controlled in this patient. And patient was starting on the dexamethasone 16 milligram per day. Recommended dose is only 6 milligrams daily. In exceptional cases, if required, then you can increase to the 6 milligrams twice daily. But it is only the 6 milligram. Here it has been used in 16 milligram. I think it is very high dose that they have used it, and it might have further dysregulated the glycemic control also. So this is the perfect setting. All you know that the mucor is an opportunistic function. So it basically infect the people who are having the low immunity. And this is the classical example, a diabetic with uncontrolled sugar and moreover given the steroids also. So this is the person who is likely to infect with mucor. Anybody else? Dr. Alok, would you like to say anything?
On Dexona dosing, sir,
on Dexona dosing, would you like to?
Yes, the dose, as you told, was pretty high, and that is the most commonly incriminated factor nowadays being talked about the increase in the number of fungal infections. So rightly said that Dexa 16 milligram is a fairly high dose. I don't know what was the severity of disease at the time of presentation.
It was 18, sir, 18 by...
No, clinical severity, and that is the one, and I would like to point out here that clinical severity and the CT severity scoring has got a lot of pitfalls in correlation. Clinical severity and the intensity of the involvement on the HRCT does not directly correlate with the intensity of severity of clinical presentation, because a simple ground glass appearance can also give a 24 out of 25 score, but that is early disease. And if you give a small dose of dexamethasone, these people respond, very, very nicely. Very nicely they respond to the treatment. And so CT severity score should be always interpreted with the type of involvement and along with the clinical presentation. So if the patient is requiring only 1 or 2 liters of oxygen at presentation, he does not require such a high dose of corticosteroids.
So he was initially on BiPAP for 2 days and then NRBM for 5 days. And still the patient is on 4 liters. And So I think the message here is that it was diabetes poorly uncontrolled, as Dr. Sir said, and then high dose of steroid. And the patient eventually tested negative on 10/5.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Dr. Hardeep, please. Dr. Hardeep Malhotra, comment from your side is also warranted. Hardeep Malhotra,
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah.
So,
Have you heard about this patient?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So there has been a prolonged use of corticosteroids beyond the normal recommended 6 milligrams dosage of dexamethasone. And besides this, the patient has been uncontrolled diabetic, which, as was rightly said, that it provides the actual background for the development of any fungal infection, not necessarily mucormycosis. And as has also been shown in this MRI, the T2 weighted coronal scan and the lower down axial scans. So it is pretty much evident that there has been involvement of the nasal turbinates, there is mucosal hypertrophy. Should I go ahead with the findings, sir? There is suggestion of involvement of mucosa. There is hypertrophy of the first column, second row. It is very nicely, it can be appreciated that the mucosal hypertrophy is involving the maxillary sinus. It is also evident that the tracking of involvement is along the ethmoidal sinus, which is leading to the change in the stage from the basic stage of nasal to the paranasal sinuses, and that the propensity of involvement of the eye is becoming high. So this is important here, that if we look at the various stages, we need to appreciate that if the disease is limited only to the nasal mucosa, if my cursor is appreciated, if it is only evident at the level of stage 1, and there is involvement of maxillary sinuses. It is not so that the sphenoid sinus or the sinus is not involved, but in terms of the propensity, the ethmoidal and frontal are more likely to get involved than the maxillary sinus or the sphenoidal sinus. In the stage 3, there is involvement of scan which shows side with ipsilateral involvement of the nasal mucosa, hypertrophy of the turbinates. There is very minimal suggestion of involvement of the mucosa, the nasal turbinates on the opposite side. The majority of involvement is on the in the axial scans, that is the lower down right here, the of the orbit, there is intensity. Both these scans are T2 MRI. So stated that towards the post can be hyper, and the hyperintensity is evident both at the level of terminal level of eye. So these are which scans, sir.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes, sir. The involvement is limited. If we can see the upper image, the fourth and the fifth image on the first row, it can be seen that frontal sinuses are involved. Yes, the cursor that is in the frontal sinuses are involved, but the evidence as of now of intracranial extension is not there. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So, sir has already highlighted the points. I just wanted to highlight this patient has jaw pain. So, we wanted to know what is the jaw pain. So, in this scan, we can see that there is a small intensity here on the anterior and inferior part of the maxillary sinus. So, this maxillary sinus is involved, no doubt. But on the anterior and inferior portion on the axial scan, we see this, which will be more evident on this imaging. So, we see that here there is a involvement here. And this was giving him the jaw pain, the upper jaw pain in the lower part, the upper alveolar nerve is being involved. So for this case, the setting was right. And also the MRI suggested that there is a inflammation in the, and as rightly pointed out, this is nasal cavity and paranasal sinuses. Still, there is no orbital and brain involvement.
Okay. So how do you approach such patients, Amit?
Yes, sir. So now that we have a clinical setting, diabetic patient, and he has clinical features suggestive of rhinosinusitis and most probably fungal because of the numbness and involvement. So we do a nasal endoscopy. Surprisingly, when we did a nasal endoscopy, in this patient, we find almost normal kind of turbinates. But then on the posterior part of this part, we take a swab. So when we took a swab and Marak madam is here, then she told me the same evening by 7 p.m. that the mucormycosis, ma'am, can you comment better on the QH wet mount?
Brief.
So we got the swabs. It was since it was in the nasal area, we have already told that we needed moistened swabs. So he had taken the samples and sent to us, and within half an hour, we are able to see. We just do a KOH wet mount, and it's a very simple method, and we are able to see these hyphal elements, which are showing around 5 to 7 micron in size, and they are aseptate and 90-degree angle or the right angle. And there can be sometime folded on itself, which is like a ribbon-like, or it could be sparsely septate. So irregular septations you may find. But however, the typical feature of right angle branching and this thin hyphae, and many times you do not see the septation, will give you a presumptive diagnosis of mucormycosis.
So what you have done next?
Then
What is your planning?
so we have started this patient on receiving in emergency on amphotericin B because the suspicion was very high. And as soon as we got a negative report, we did a nasal endoscopy and we started on amphotericin B, sir. So then the next decision was
what
that,
type of the amphotericin do you start?
sir, initially we do not have the liposomal in the emergency. So we started with, sir, I will come to this,
Okay.
that how we manage. So then there was a surgical decision making that this patient will require amphotericin B along with the surgery. So in surgical decision making, as sir said, that this was grade 1 and grade 2. So in grade 1 and grade 2, we need to open the sinuses widely, remove all the mucosa, and this is the orb. And as the orbital involvement increases, we do orbital exploration, exentration, maxillectomy, and if there is a skin involvement. So as we can see that this is the right side. So this was the surgery we did. What we did was that sir has rightly said that the frontal sinus was involved. So I will come here. This is the left frontal sinus, and you can see the pus pouring in. So the pus was, we have already removed the ethmoid sinuses, and this is the skull base, and this is the orbit. So you can see again that when we remove the pus from the frontal sinuses, we can get a frontal globe. Also, we do have to take a judicious decision. I inspected this area, and here I find a small kind of teeth in relation to the small abscess. So I opened this area. I have already done a modified Denker in this case to remove the walls of maxilla. So I opened this area and drilled this bone which was involved. This teeth was normal, but this bone, you can see that yellow bone, we have drilled around and we have removed it. So I have an endoscopic video. If there is a time, I can show it. Patient started on amphotericin B deoxychelate 1.5 mg per kg per day on the diagnosis, as we have correlated with the history and all that. Shifted to liposomal on SOP coming positive, because now we know surely, and we got supply next day, sir. So we shifted him on liposomal, and then patient received insulin infusion initially, and now on regular intermediate acting insulin. Patient received 2 grams of amphotericin B, and after this surgery, also we have washed the surgical cavity with amphotericin deoxychelate, and then plan to discharge. We are planning to discharge this patient tomorrow with insulin and posaconazole 200 mg QID. So around 2 to 2.5 grams before the discharge, we are planning to give, and this was the case how we managed, sir.
You would like to comment on the treatment? Amphotericin B and followed by the posaconazole.
That you don't have to wait for the liposomal amphotericin B, because in dire circumstances it is better to give what you have. So amphotericin B, you have to take due precautions of giving 510 ml before a saline, before the ampho, and post that also you can give it. So you don't have to really worry about the nephrotoxicity issue. It is sometimes blown out of proportions. So you have to be just taking more precautions that you can pre-hydrate them, pre and post the infusion. And the dose of amphotericin has to be an infusion form given over minimum of 6 to 8 hours, what we do. The issue of infusion-related reactions, these are small things in terms of mucormycosis that you are dealing with. So get away of the idea that giving an amphotericin B is going to be so dangerous for your patient. It is not. It is a very, very rampantly used medication. If you take due precautions, nephrotoxicity really doesn't bring an issue in this case of patients. But yes, if you have liposomal, both of them are there with you, I will choose liposomal amphotericin B for our patients.
I think this is a demonstration of the case which has been successfully treated. The person has come to you against the background of a diabetes mellitus which was uncontrolled with the HbA1c of the 9.3, at least telling you for the last 3 months, the blood sugar was not adequately controlled. And then he got the COVID and he was having the moderate to the severe disease as clinically as well as on the CT scan. Also, he was started on very high doses of steroid, that is 16 milligrams of the dexamethasone, that might have further disorganized, or I would say enhance increase the blood sugar level also. And you must have seen that this patient was early diagnosis was made. Our microbiologists have given the results within an hour or so, and surgeon has taken up this case also for the surgery, and ultimately we could get rid of the disease. At least it is not increasing in intensity, it is under control now, and already has been given about 2 grams of the amphotericin B, and now switching over to the posaconazole. So that is something I want to know from Dr. R.K. Singh or Dr. Hardeep also. Dr. Hardeep, you are there? So what is the treatment with the amphotericin B? Then you are saying switching over to the posaconazole. Do you want to give the amphotericin B throughout, or you can switch over to the posaconazole? I think that kind of statement comes from your side also. I think Dr. R.K. Singh will answer to this question.
I think the dose limit that Amit is trying to say is that he has received 2 grams of amphotericin B. Now, it is a number figure. Okay, the end result is that you must have enough debridement. The end result is that there should be no soft tissue swelling in that area when you do multiple debridements. It is a time frame as well as a dose frame that has been set into our minds. But the actual figure is it should be adequately cleaned, adequately debrided. So I would not stick myself up to a 2 gram amphotericin B. I would continue with my aggressive therapy. Now the duration of period is between 3 weeks to as much as 6 weeks of amphotericin B. 3 weeks to 6 weeks. Now, if I'm aggressive, I will reach that target in 3 weeks. So try and reach that target of 3 weeks at the earliest. If you achieve those simple targets like your debridement is enough, you are happy with the progress of the condition of the patient, you have controlled adequately the predisposing factors, your sugar controls are fantastic, your creatinines are not going up, I would rather switch over my therapy even just at the end of 2 weeks also. So if I achieve that target, I'll switch over to a step-down therapy of either a posaconazole or an isovuconazole. I would prefer isovuconazole over posaconazole in the current literature evidence that we have.
In this, the European ECMM recommends that, as Dr. R.K. Singh said, that the duration of amphotericin B is guided by the clinical and radiological response. So, imaging is recommended before you say that the disease has stabilized, and then you go down to the step-down therapy with a oral agent, which can be posaconazole or isavuconazole. So the European Confederation on Medical Mycology with the Mycosis Study Group MSG has recommended in the recent their global guidelines that, for example, they have just mentioned in the guideline that weekly imaging may be required. Weekly imaging may be required to actually find out that whether you have obtained the amount of debridement, the amount of disease source control which you desire, and then you can plan step down cutoff of in grams of amphotericin B has not been advocated, neither it has been given clearly by any society.
Even